Okay, let's see if things are working. Let's see if it starts stuttering again. If it starts to be weird. Hello. Hello. Check, check, check. Hello, hello. Still. Wah, 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 wah. Okay, let's see. Looks like it's doing what it's supposed to do currently. Let's see. All right, that looks like it's working. That kind of looks like it's working. That looks okay. Tazzy. What up, Taz? What up, Tazzy Taz? What's good? What's good? What's good? Chilling, chilling, chilling. All right. It looks like things have stabilized on the stream. If that's the case, I'm going to start the recording over because that was not great. And it's going to suck having to try to redo that all over again from where we are. We should be back. Let me know if things are stuttering, if things are stabilized on that side. Tazzy Taz, I miss you, Tazzy Taz. I miss you, fam. It looks great. No stuttering on TikTok. No stuttering on YouTube and stuff. Somebody check YouTube for me because once I get an okay from folks, I'm gonna restart the show. I'm gonna just do the show from the top. So apologize if you saw the beginning parts of that and it sucked. So I apologize for that. Why is Twitch now being weird? Okay, it's not being weird. I had to refresh the thing. Bitrate is looking good. Shout out to the one person who looks like me on Twitch. Looks smooth and high quality here. Okay, good. Nice. Somebody poke at YouTube for me and just let me know if it looks right. Go to youtube.com/follow on me. Just tell me if it looks right over there. I'm just triple checking everything before I start the show all over again. It looks fine from what I can tell. Why it's in 1080p, I mean 720p, 480p, that's beyond me, but I don't know. Okay. It looks okay. Here in YouTube, Mr. Hawks, does it look okay? Give me the word. Tell me if I botched it. It looks good? Okay, dope. All right. Thanks everybody. So what happened was when I got hacked, all my stream keys got freaked out. So that might have thrown away some of the issues or messed up some of the stuff that's here for the the streaming service that I use, or the program that I use, which is called vMix. So it might have freaked that out. Okay, dope. I'm gonna, do all the cool things on TikTok, send me all the hearts, do all that wonderful stuff because I love you all. I'm gonna restart the show and just shorten it up because I was talking a lot. All right, cool. All right, everybody. This is Podcasting 101. It's not like I haven't been doing this for 11 years. That's how it works. My God, sweet baby Jesus. Someone help me, Lord. Help. 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 Okay. Dope. All right, we got it. All right, let me start the record. All right, 3, 2, 1. Yay.
Spawn On Me is the premier podcast spotlighting people of color. Every week, we talk news, what we've been playing, and tell you who's invited to the cookout. Our show is all about talking about gaming through a prism of blackness because we are the culture. Welcome to Bricago, y'all.
Yo, what up, everybody in Bricago? What up? This is the Spawn On Me podcast with Khalif Adams. I'm your host, Khalif Adams. Hope you're doing well, having a fantastic weekend. Hope you're having a lovely time. I hope you have washed your hands and washed your butt. Hope you have made sure that you are paying attention to all the wonderful people in your life and giving them love, because the world out here is wild as hell, and people are losing their minds about everything, everywhere, all the time. But I hope that you can come here every week and find a lovely space for you to reside and come hang out with us and talk video games, talk reasonable things, and have a fun time talking about things that we actually like in comparison to all the wild stuff out in the world. So if you have not checked out our podcast before, if you're new and you're watching us here on TikTok, on X, on YouTube, or Twitch, please go follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all of those wonderful places where you can go find all of our shows, all of our content. If you're really looking for video content, make sure you're going to YouTube and especially going to our Spotify. If you're not on Spotify, I totally understand there's a lot of folks who have some issues with Spotify, but Spotify is a really good place to watch our show because you get both versions. You get the audio version and you get the video version all in one space. So if you're going and looking for more of our content, it's a wonderful place to go check out our show and all the goodness that we have for Spawn On Me. Again, if you missed last week's show was all about some things that we saw on GDC. And this week, we're going to be talking a little bit about a couple of things that I also saw at GDC that are really fun. Steel Hunters, which is this really dope PvE co-op game that is like a little bit of Battle Royale, a little bit of extraction game. The Crimson Desert demo. I got a demo of their new engine, or the engine that's going to be driving Crimson Desert. If you haven't seen the preview stuff that we did of that game earlier on in the year, please go check that out as well on YouTube, because that thing is gorgeous and beautiful. And we're going to be talking a little bit about the Nintendo Direct with the stuff that we put in there, and Ubisoft also getting some money from Tencent very recently as opposed to this week. So lots of dope stuff to talk about in this episode of the show, and very excited to be rocking with you all here on our lovely broadcast that I didn't mess up 4 times because of the internet. Messing up my podcast, the software, and all the good stuff that lives there. So we're going to get right into the conversation with the first part of our show, which is the 411. So first up on the 411, we got a chance to check out something really cool from the folks over at Nintendo and the Nintendo Direct that happened earlier this week, which was super, super cool. It was really dope to be able to see, everyone is excited about the Switch 2. Everybody's been really hyped about what's happening on Switch. And a lot of things are going to be moving forward because we're going to hear finally in the next couple of days, I think it's the 2nd of April, what the Switch 2 is in a real way. We've seen so many rumors over the years, so many discussions about what that piece of hardware is going to wind up being, but they did a really cool thing and a really interesting thing, which was they gave us a little bit of peek into the future of what their platform is going to wind up being with their virtual card system. So it's the virtual game card that they have. It's basically like a virtual version of their cartridges, which You know, if you are a fan of the Switch, you know how hard it is sometimes to keep track of those bad boys and know where they're going to live. But it's also very, very cool to have that be something that is, you know, an easy way for you to keep things manageable for your hardware, for your software, and all of those things. They put out a really good article, or let's just say the folks over at Kotaku put out an article explaining what the virtual game card system is going to wind up being. And it looks like what we're going to call VGCs are these digitally injected and loaded versions of games that can be played on a second device. So if you have multiple Switches in your home, you have one for you, one for your kid, you can basically swap out like a library. And, you know, I know young kids are like, what the hell is a library? But basically like a library book, but for games, you can swap those between systems, and these, you don't wind up having to buy the game for a second time. You can just use it once, swap it between systems, give each other the ability to kind of use it, and that gives you the space to play that game in another room, on another TV, on another device, if you have multiple devices. So I think that's super, super cool. It says the company promises that you're able to that you're free to load and trade digital games using VGCs freely between two specific paired systems. Think an upstairs Switch and a downstairs Switch, too, and you'll need to locally connect the consoles for the first time before you start doing any digital swapping, which I think is pretty easy and smart in the way that they're working all of those things. It says you can also share VGCs with members of your Nintendo account family group. This is a little bit more limited, but it must be done over a local wireless connection and can only lend out one game at a time to each member. After 2 weeks, they lose access to the VGC and it returns back to the original owner. You know, if you're playing a long game, that's going to be a little bit difficult. You know, you're playing Zelda for the first time, you really want to finish it up. That's going to be really weird because you're going to be like, yo, I was right in the middle of my game and then the joint just left my system. Nintendo also claims that the new system will work with digital games and be even easier to use, and that this new system will work with Nintendo Switch 2, as confirmed by the company during the Direct. It does not seem like Nintendo's solution is going to be a problem that other folks have been able to solve, so they've finally figured out what that's going to wind up being for them. There was an update as well. A Nintendo representative as of 3/27 Nintendo representatives said Nintendo representatives told Crossplay that this new virtual game system will be optional and that Switch owners can continue to use current gaming sharing features involving primary consoles if they so desire. Here's the statement from Crossplay. It says, we think many people will enjoy the benefits of Virtual Game Card. It is an optional feature and the original method can still be used instead. So if you don't want to swap digital game cards, you can ignore this new system totally, but it might be something really cool for parents who want to switch between different machines. I think this is super cool. Like, I think Nintendo has also been a company that has not been very future facing in a lot of different ways. I think future facing in terms of their online infrastructure has also been a little bit weird and kind of old and antiquated. But I love the fact that they are figuring out how to make all these things happen for, you know, the idea is that most folks who have a Switch will probably either, you know, sell their old Switch or upgrade and buy a new one. And if you have one that's already kind of settled into a space, it just makes it pretty easy for you to be able to have one somewhere else in a room that looks pretty dope, and you'll be able to put it on a new TV. You'll have it in another room, so you don't have to like run between rooms, go get cards and swap those out and do all that kind of stuff. What they also did during the Direct that I thought was really, really smart was that they have a new app that they have. You know, everyone kind of laughed at it and was like, it's a calendar, because that's the way they talked about it. But what I came away with that was, this is a really smart thing for Nintendo from a marketing and messaging perspective. I think a lot of people forget that Nintendo is a really, really smart company when it comes to understanding and figuring out exactly what they want, the conversation to be around their games, the conversation that they want to be around their IP, the conversations that they want to be around, the way that Nintendo discusses everything about what it tries to do. And you see, with an internet that has gotten even more mean over the past couple of months and years, where people roll up on Nintendo streams and chat in the YouTube chat and say a whole bunch of mean things, and you have to worry about, figuring out how to monitor all that stuff. I think they'll still be doing directs there and things across most of those channels, but I think what will change will be you getting the ability to see new things in a new light, in a new way, directly from Nintendo, in a way that they can only figure out and manage. Like, they will give you the direct access in the ways that they want. And I feel like maybe you'll even get some new and interesting ways to check out Nintendo Directs in the app that'll link directly to things that they're going to want you to buy. And potentially what they could do is what they did in the Direct earlier. Usually you'll get this thing that happens when they're in a Direct, they're doing their thing, and you'll see something to the effect of, oh, well, this new thing is out, right? This new thing is out. This new game is out. This new idea of what we're trying to build is out. And that will then have a link out to something that is probably directly in the app that you can then go download immediately. That stuff makes a ton of sense to me. Again, if you're a person who's thinking about how you want to, control the message, keep things in a tight ecosystem, make sure you're keep kicking out trolls and mean folks in those ways, it would make a lot of sense to be able to do that. So I haven't downloaded it yet, but I'm probably going to very soon, just to see what the experience is and see how that all kind of lines up, because I think that's just really smart for Nintendo as a company that has not been the most future facing in terms of its online infrastructure and the way it looks at the internet and how we all use it. I think it's pretty smart to be able to do something in that respect. So I think really, really dope for them. I think this system, again, if you can use it and you're in that ecosystem where you're using it for multiple machines, just makes a ton of sense. Over on Twitch, our friends are saying, what if they were to add direct content drops if you watch a direct via their app? They could. That makes a ton of sense. Mr. Hawks also is saying over on that side, didn't they announce the live action Zelda movie released on the app? They did. Again, it's a direct to consumer way to get you information that you might want as a person who cares about all of those things in a real way, and deciding to do it. Cameron Kennedy over on TikTok is saying, I feel they saw people fleeing to Blue Sky and other apps over the last couple of years and didn't want to choose, so they made their own thing. I agree. Like, again, X/Twitter has become a very negative and dangerous space. It has become one where it is not family friendly. It is not brand friendly in a lot of different ways. It still has value if you're a person who's on social media, but like, that platform in and of itself is a cesspool right now. And Nintendo as a brand doesn't want that headache. They have no reason for it. They're not going to advertise on that platform because it doesn't make sense. And everybody who I know, who I've ever spoken to, who works at Nintendo, they feel pretty similar. It's like, we use this because we have to, and we don't necessarily want to, which I think is an extremely important thing to remember. Again, like, brands are looking to find customers. And if your customers, or at least the players that are, players, I say on social media, are spouting the worst things on the planet and conspiracy theorists and, MAGA friendly and all this other kind of stuff, even though Nintendo is not very political at all, actually stays away from politics in a big way, this is a good thing for them to be able to understand, like, what does that look like in an actual way for people in that space. It doesn't really fit the vibe, like J-Dub is saying in the chat. Absolutely, it just doesn't. Second story on the 411 is Tencent. Tencent is doing some interesting things as well. I think, we've had a lot of conversations over the past couple of weeks around the launch of Assassin's Creed Shadows. They recently talked about 3 million players being in their ecosystem, and now we're seeing, I think a lot of folks had very disparate conversations going on in their heads. There was the kind of grifter space was talking about all these things are terrible. Ubisoft is going to fail. The game is going to fail. All those things are terrible and bad. We now have seen again with Ubisoft sharing at least 3 million players have been playing it since it's the biggest launch they've had on Steam, biggest launch so far that they've had out of the kind of most recent games in all those ways. There's a lot of bluster around what this game is, even though the game seems to be doing pretty well in terms of growth. We don't know sales yet, and people have been jumping on videos that I've been sharing around Assassin's Creed and being like, yeah, so what if they got 3 million views and stuff, or 3 million players and stuff? A thing that you have to understand from a marketing perspective is like most companies, especially ones that have this amount of eyes on it and had this amount of eyes on it for over a year and a half, with people from day one, as soon as they saw Yasuke saying this game is going to be bad, why do we have a black samurai, all that kind of stuff. I doubt that those folks as a company would go out of their way to say our game is doing super, super well if it wasn't. Or at least it's doing up to expectations for what they think of for how a game's health is doing. Most teams don't do that. That's not a thing that you would do if you're smart about it, because to be fair, the internet can check you on it pretty easily. Like they can look at it and be like, yeah, you're not actually doing well once the sales figures go out and all that kind of stuff. Like it doesn't behoove them to be able to say those things out loud and then get basically checked on it in a way that is not going to be helpful to them. So I for the current state of where they're at, I believe that they have a pretty healthy community for a single player game that is doing well in what that means. The other conversation that has been going around for a while has been Ubisoft has had some games that have failed, and games that have not done very, very well. They have been trying to figure out where the landscape is going to be for them in moving forward. And there has been a big rumor about Ubisoft going under and being either sold off or folding in general. Then we had a conversation that happened last week where big company Tencent, Chinese conglomerate out of Tencent, which owns a ton of equity and investments in a bunch of different game studios, game companies all over the place, they put some money into Ubisoft this past week. So Ubisoft will spin off its most successful game franchises. Again, I'm reading from a Kotaku article right now. Will spin off most of its successful franchises, including Assassin's Creed, Far Cry, Rainbow Six Siege, into separate subsidiaries thanks to a $1.25 billion investment from Tencent. The massive deal allows the founding Guillemot family to remain in control of the publisher despite its recent struggles and cratering share prices. So, what does this mean? And what does this mean in terms of the way I kind of look at it? And I'll share really quickly what Yves Guillemot said in a press release. He says, with the creation of this dedicated subsidiary, that will spearhead development for 3 of our largest franchises on the onboarding of Tencent as a minority investor, we are crystallizing the value of our assets, strengthening our balance sheet, and creating the best conditions for these franchises' long-term growth and success. Guillemot said in a press release on Thursday. He said, with its dedicated and autonomous leadership team, it will focus on transforming these 3 brands into unique ecosystems. And he said on a call with investors following the announcement, the company's leadership clarified that Ubisoft 2, or whatever this ends up being called, will still report up to Yves Guillemot. And says there will be a dedicated management under the supervision of a board that will be controlled by Ubisoft and some of its investors in that way. So, what does that mean in the grand scheme? At least the way I'm kind of looking at it from a layman's term. Again, I haven't seen the contract. I don't know how it works in the grand scheme. I'm just pontificating off of what I kind of understand of the space. And again, this could all be BS at the end of the day. It could not be true. It could not be right. What I think is happening is Ubisoft has a bunch of pillars of games that they really know have been doing okay. I think Far Cry needs to come back in a real way. I think that's fine. Assassin's Creed Shadows right now is looking very, very good and promising in terms of two things. I think Ubisoft is looking at money, and I think they're also looking at like mind share. They're like, is our name, when people think of Ubisoft, do you think about it in positive terms or negative terms? Most of the conversation from the internet has been negative around Ubisoft for a minute. I think Assassin's Creed Shadows helps to turn some of that around a little bit. And knowing that Hex, that's coming out hopefully in the next couple of years, which is kind of their more online version of Assassin's Creed, will do well based off of the success that Shadows is having. Then you have Rainbow Six Siege, which is probably the game that's doing the best out of all the things that they put out over the past couple of years. We saw XDefiant not do well. We saw Hyperscape not do well. So I think they're still in a space where like that's their main shooter for the time being. And I think that makes sense because that game still is continuing to grow, still has a really good fan base, still has a space for a lot of people to really dig in and enjoy what that game is trying to do. So I think for them, they're looking at it and being like, oh, this makes a ton of sense of how this is all working. So I think there's a piece of that works really, really well for them. I think that makes a ton of sense. I think, they're looking forward, trying to figure out exactly where all of these things land for them. I think the injection of money at $1.25 billion, which is a lot, gives them some space to think about, or at least infuse some capital into some games that I think people really care about. Like, Splinter Cell could be the one that they want. I think everyone and their mama wants a new Splinter Cell game. I think everybody's been looking for one. I think it winds up not only as J Dublin saying in the chat, says, as long as this investment saves a lot of the devs who would otherwise be let go if you went under, I'm all good with it. I just hope they take a long, hard look at how they've gotten to the current state of the company before they go spending their cash on stuff. Exactly. I think this does a couple of things. It makes them solvent so that they don't have to let go of a bunch of talent, because talent in the Canadian space moves around a lot in its own circles. So like within the country, if you get laid off from Ubisoft, there's a couple other studios you can go to. It winds up working in the opposite way most times, where if you get laid off from another company and you live in Canada, you try to get into Ubisoft because they're like, it's a big studio with a bunch of different smaller studios underneath that larger umbrella. But this gives you a space now to say, okay, we can take a couple of risks on some other stuff, which I doubt they're going to do right now. I think they're going to be risk averse in all the ways that you need to be risk averse. I think you're not going to see a new IP, a new game in that way coming out of left field like XDefiant or Hyperscape. Even though I liked Hyperscape a lot, it just fell into the wrong slot for what was happening in the Battle Royale space, even though I think that game was actually pretty dope. But I think what they will do is say, all right, we have now some runway. Let's go hard on a game like Splinter Cell. Again, Splinter Cell is going to be a game that I think just does well. Is immediate, like it'll get people excited. It will get people hyped for it. It'll get people who have been looking for that IP to come back, me included. Everybody and their mama wants that game to come back. It's the easiest win that you can possibly have in terms of making a thing for the players that they want. I think that's easy. It's an easy win for them. And now I think this gives them some money and some space to be able to do that work in a way that makes sense for them and keeps them in a spot where they are doing okay for a while financially. I don't think they have to worry about Assassin's Creed being a massive hit and basically keeping the studio alive, even though multiple studios work on it in that way. It gives them some runway to kind of think about what's going on for them in that discussion. So I think this is pretty good. I think this is an interesting conversation. We'll see exactly what pans out with this. later on down the line. But I do think that this is a smart way for them to keep themselves in a decent spot and also give them some runway and also figure out some new avenues for, injecting what they want into the space that makes a ton of sense for them. I think this is just a smart move. And to be fair, Tencent coming in and swooping in and kind of saving the day for them is important. I think as much as Tencent and the idea around Tencent gets a lot of bad rap for, this Chinese company kind of coming in and swooping in and doing stuff, they aren't Embracer, right? Like they have cut some stuff over the years and have made some not necessarily great decisions, but I think they are a company that makes pretty smart decisions in the companies that they put money into. I think they have money in Epic. I think they have money in a couple other larger studios, but they are making smart decisions with the financial moves that they make. And I think this could be a really smart decision for them as well in that larger conversation for what they're going for. Last comment from Jay Dublin in there, and then we're going to take a quick break and come back with what we've been playing. So they need to look at some AA level titles using some of their old IPs to generate some wins and cash flow, while also having 1 or 2 big AAA titles alongside. Yeah, like I think Prince of Persia would be something in there. I think, does this actually get us back to a space where Beyond Good and Evil becomes something that people talk about again? Because that game has been shelved for a long period of time. I don't think we'll see stuff like Skull and Bones get more development time into it. I think that game is still doing stuff, but I don't think it's doing, extremely well. I don't know. I haven't played it, except out of stuff that I played a long time ago. Maybe we get something else in the Watch Dogs space. I think that could be really interesting because I liked the last Watch Dogs, and it just didn't hit in the way that we had an expectation for. Mr. Hawks agrees. I think there's a lot of things that they can play around with in this space that makes a ton of sense and makes, just a really good idea for what they have to do. That being said, we're going to take a super quick break. We're going to go and do a couple of quick ads. These things are like less than a minute. And then we're going to come right back with the what we've been playing segment. I'm going to talk a little bit about Crimson Desert, show you some videos from what I got a chance to see. And also, we're going to talk a little bit about Steel Hunters before we get up out of here for episode 543 of the Spawn on Me podcast. Thank you, everybody, for rocking on this Sunday, watching us here on Twitch, on TikTok, and all the other places that we reside. So much love to you all for coming and hanging out, especially with our technical difficulties that we had earlier on in the show. So 2 quick ads, and then we'll be right back with what we've been playing. Hey everybody, Khalif here from the Spawn on Me podcast. Hey, we have been in the market for new PCs for a long time, and for our 10th year anniversary, the wonderful folks from NZXT have partnered with us in a collab to be our hardware sponsors. So, if you are looking for a new PC to stream or to game in the best way possible, go check out nzxt.co/spawnonmebld, and you'll be able to find a perfect PC for you, whether that be the Player 1 machine, Player 2 machine, or Player 3 machine. The ones that we're rocking for our new studio build. They have everything you possibly could need for the best PC experience on the planet. Remember to go check out nzxt.co/spawnonmebld, and they will get you set up right. Much love and peace.
Hey there, my name is Naomi, and you might know me from internet things like hosting for IGN. I'd like to introduce you to my new show, This Week in Gaming. It's 20 minutes, short and sweet, and every week I go through all the important gaming news that you need to know, and then we have folks on like Khalif Adams, who shows up quite often, talk about all the important news. And you get to listen to it wherever you get your podcast, so it's easy to find. Just look for This Week in Gaming and make sure to give it a follow. And every week, Monday at 9 p.m. Pacific time, you get a brand new episode. I hope you'll join me.
So, welcome back, everybody coming back from our break. Shout out to all of you. Again, if you missed the first half of the show, we talked a little bit about Ubisoft and Tencent kind of joining forces for a bit, and Nintendo and their wonderful work that they've been doing, getting us ready for the Switch 2 in so many different ways. I really like that NZXT commercial. All those videos of the computer and all the stuff in that. I did that in my kitchen. That felt so good. Every time I look at it, I'm like, damn, I'm kind of talented. I have skills. Anyway, on this part of the show, we're going to talk a little bit about Crimson Desert, which I am very excited about. Also, shout out to the person who gifted us some loveliness and some diamonds over on TikTok. I just checked that and that was very, very cool. Crimson Desert, we got a chance to check out their new engine, which I think a thing that people really don't understand or kind of really dig into was, you know, when people think about new engines or think about engines that games are using, I think the kind of easy nomenclature that people dig into is like, is it Unreal 5 or not? Right? I think, you know, my time as working in dev spaces and working at studios, I've learned a lot about video game engines and what those things mean and what, you know, what does the audience think of when they discuss engines and what do developers think of, you know, especially moving from Unreal version 4 to Unreal 5. And the nitty gritty of it, the TLDR version is like, there are different versions of engines that are, you know, have a base of it and then they get hacked together to do certain things. Like many discussions happen in the development space of like, what is our base and then how do we lift that to be able to do things that the engine doesn't natively do. What came across in the stuff that I got a chance to check out at GDC this year was I got this demo, I had an appointment with the team, and they talked about, you know, come check out our engine. We know you had some time with it before playing against some of the bosses, but we have some really cool tech here that we want to showcase and show off for all of you at home and for you to kind of share with your audience. And some of the stuff that I got a chance to check out was like really, really dope. So like, I'm going to go through a couple of the videos and tell you what I felt when I got a chance to see this stuff and give you a little bit of background on why this stuff is what it is. So one of the things that they had done, and this is going to get real nerdy and real interesting in those ways. If you love to hear about how systems work and those kinds of things, this part of the show is for you. So they showed us their volumetric fog and fluid simulations work. That stuff was very interesting because what it wound up doing is, you know, when you think about fog in spaces, it is built around the engine. The engine has particle effects that it shows off and gives you the ability to kind of move within a space, and that fog has its own properties. What they showed in this was the fog just doesn't emanate from one particular area, and it's not like your body doesn't actually kind of interact with it in the ways that you're used to from other games. Most times you kind of just like move through it and it's all kind of static in a way it is, or it's kind of baked into the way that the particles move. So like it's kind of formulaic in the way that it does it. This, it's using fluid simulation. So it's really kind of showcasing fog and having its properties be exactly what you would think of in the real world. I think the overall takeaway from a lot of the videos I'm going to show you is that what they're trying to do in this game with this engine is replicate real world physics and real world expectations of the ways things would work if you were in those scenarios and in those kinds of things. Spartan Solidus says over on YouTube, is this coming to console? It looks crazy. Yes, it will be coming to console. And the thing that was really cool about it, because I asked them, I was like, well, look, for stuff like this, I think the conversation is from most players, will this stuff translate? Because I saw it on a really beefy PC. I was like, will this stuff translate really well to players who might be on console? And the surprising thing was, not even just will it be coming to console and feel and look like this, but you won't need a crazy GPU to run this stuff either. I think a lot of the stuff that they had in their previous games, you could run on, I think, like a 2070 card, and it would still have all the bells and whistles in a way that gives you some of this visual splendor in the ways that we're seeing it here. This stuff was actually really dope. I loved this, which was they showed us some time of day stuff. And again, we are kind of used to time of day in games and understand like, okay, it's going to be moving. So it's like, this is, they sped it up a ton in the ways that it looks, but it looks beautiful. Like, the stuff that they did in this was crazy good looking. It looks really good. Like, one of the things I asked them during my time with the demo was in a space like this, you can see really, really far, right? If you're watching this on YouTube or if you're watching this on Spotify, you can see this stuff. What they did was they just like teleported us to various parts of the map. And all of those things that you could see literally were there on the map. So like that mountain in the background, again, it's very much like if you can see it, you can go to it kind of stuff. But like not even just the fact that you can go to it, the draw distance and the visual fidelity of those spaces is really rendered in a really smart way so that the closer you get to it, those assets start to really pop in, but you don't notice pop in. You don't notice things being populated in the distance in the ways that you see when you think of traditional pop-in. They just are there. The closer you start to get to those things, they just showcase themselves as being the assets that you were thinking about. And it just looked really, really pretty. Like, this game is going to be one of the most beautiful games I've seen in a very long time. It's going to be real cool. Cameron Kennedy says, I think the wind works as a fluid sim as well. I'm going to show you the wind stuff in a second, actually, because those things are really cool. Actually, let's show that really fast now. The wind physics and cloth and based hair stuff, so cool. So what they did was they showed us this moment. They opened up the debug menu, and all of these things are based on this fluid simulation. So like the hair on the mane on the horse, your hair, the cloth simulation of your outfit, the cloth simulation of the way the wind is moving the grass, the all of those things again emit and do exactly what you think of depending upon the way that the wind is actually blowing. And all of those things are interacting in real time, in real space. So like they opened up the menu and like blew wind from the bottom underneath these pieces of fabric, and it blew straight up underneath the cloth, but it acted and reacted in the way that you expected all of those things to do. It did it across the water, it did it across the ground, it did it across your clothing, and it's like it does it across particle systems too. So like if there's fire happening, the wind is carrying not only the embers in a direction that you would expect based on the wind, but it's like propagating in those ways too. It is so cool about all that stuff. Jay Dublin says he's worried about game performance. I'm telling you now, like in the ways that they talked about this, at least from what we discussed, even if you have a system, if you're running this on PC, it should run pretty well on a lower end GPU or a modest GPU, and it should run pretty well on console as well. I was like really blown away, and no pun intended, by how all of these systems work together. They need to apply this tech if the character breaks wind, if they fart. I mean, maybe. Who knows? I don't know. Maybe. It might work. It could be a thing. It could definitely be a thing. Who knows? I would be fine with that. But it's very, very cool to see how that stuff works. And just like really impressed with all of the ways that those conversations, when I had a discussion with them, was like, oh no, it just works. Like it just works in a way that you expect. I want to talk about the water simulation stuff too, because I thought this was really cool. So, when you think about water, you think about just, the water is doing what it does. Like they showed the on and off version of what happens when the water sim is on, and it changes the immersion levels in a huge way. Like when the water sims are off, it's kind of running in a flat plane and doing things in that way. But when the simulation is on, it like actually is rippling across the rocks. It's bringing up the tide in the ways that you think. That stuff is also affected by the wind simulation. Like, all of these systems are working in tandem in these dope ways. And I asked them, I was like, does the tide actually literally come in? And they were like, yeah. Like, I'm a big, same Thirsty Panda in our chat's like, I'm a sucker for water physics. Me too. Like, the way this stuff looks is so impressive and so well thought out and looks so beautiful. Like, it's going to be a thing that I was like, I think there's a photo mode in this thing. And if it is, like, we got to look at that and got to do it. But, like, just the wash up against the rocks and how it kind of comes in and out, like, really dope stuff, like brilliant, fantastic things. I was like, holy crap, this is so fantastic. And here's what's wild. It's like, it's not Unreal Engine 5. This is their own proprietary engine. This is something that they have built for their games that work from what am I looking at? That work for their games and for all the stuff they work under for Abyss. I just forgot the first part of the name of the studio. I just botched it. I just forgot it at all. I'll remember it. It'll come back to me. But it is super impressive. Like, it looks so good. Pearl Abyss. This is all the stuff that Pearl Abyss has been building for their own games and for the stuff that they've been building for their engine, which is literally their engine. And it looks so good. I'm just, like, stupidly impressed by that stuff. It is really good. Their ray tracing models are extremely impressive. And two, like, again, all the lights emanating from, the bounce lighting, lighting coming in through windows and reflecting on surfaces the ways that you would expect them to. The shadows are then also populated in those ways. I just came away from everything that I saw during that time that we were there and just being like, how in the hell did you all do this? Like, this is just brilliant stuff. And I think also, let me see, did I run this one too? Oh yeah, I did run that one too. That was the one I ran before. I went out of order, but it just looks so good. Like, again, I think one of the things that we think about when we discuss the future of games and what we discuss around where games are going to be moving forward, the conversation around the uncanny valley has kind of gone away. Like, characters are going to look really good. You're going to get crazy amounts of detail, and figuring out all of those things are going to be really good. But it's all of those little systems now, air quotes, little systems, that are going to bring immersion into a much bigger space for players like us who really care about that stuff. For people who are, like, really invested in seeing things be at their prettiest and at their most beautiful in all of those ways. I think those kinds of discussions and the stuff that Pearl Abyss is doing just really is, like, blew me away and got me really excited for Crimson Desert, because the other stuff that we got a chance to see was just, like, physics-based damage. Like, they blew up this wall and, like, everything splintered in this, like, really impressive and natural way. Like, like when you hit something, like, that wind is bouncing not only off you, but it's bouncing off the blowback is hitting you, but it's also, like, moving characters out of the way. All this stuff, like, all of these small pieces of immersion coming together under one umbrella of what this game is doing. And this game looks dope, and the characters are interesting, and the boss fights are cool, and you can literally go anywhere on these huge maps. I was just like, I want this game right now. And I told them when I was in my demo, I was like, anytime you guys want to do something, come on the show, come talk about the stuff. And their team is awesome. Like, their team was so nice and really pleasant and just, like, fun to talk to, and just, like, anything that I was like, can you show me that? They were like, yeah, let me show it to you. Like, oh, can you do that? Like, yeah, let me show it to you. And, like, seeing all the bells and whistles under the hood, again, of this proprietary engine that they have built, I'm just so excited for what this game is going to wind up being when they wind up dropping it. There's a question in the chat, or a comment that says, Ka, did they let you know if people will be able to turn off ray tracing across all platforms? Because quality mode on consoles tends to default to it being turned on. That I don't know, but that's a question that I can circle back to them and ask them. My thought is that if they've made this engine so lean in terms of performance cost and how heavy it's going to run, I think they probably have figured out a way to make that translate to consoles. Who knows? Again, we won't know what it's going to look like because there's been so many discussions around, especially on the PlayStation side of PSSR and all those things. And now hearing from folks at Digital Foundry that there's maybe potential issues with VRR and stuttering in some ways. I think everyone is trying to figure out the best ways to get the most out of the latest consoles. And I think what we'll see moving forward, especially on the Xbox side, because they skipped a mid-gen refresh, is my hope is that they have dialed in all of those technologies and given the tools to developers to really get all the goodness out of the engines that they built so that we don't have to worry about those pieces of the discussion being problematic for them. I don't think that they're looking for those things to be issues for what they're trying to build moving forward. And that's kind of where I think this one engine, at least, is doing a really good job of bridging those gaps for a lot of different folks. And we'll see what it means moving forward. But I came away amazingly impressed with what Pearl Abyss has been doing and all the stuff they have. And I'm like, man, this thing is going to look real dope when it drops. Last game that I've been playing and discussion for this episode 543 of the Spawn on Me podcast was all about a game I got a chance to play, which is called Steel Hunters from the folks over at Wargaming. So if you're familiar with World of Tanks and all that cool stuff, those folks have been building a dope co-op PvPvE game that is a mech, almost hero shooter mixed with a little bit of battle royale and extraction. That's a lot. But I played an early version of the game. The alpha is dropping on the 2nd of April, so make sure you're going and checking that out. I'm going to be jumping into that thing because I love mech fighters and mech games like that. And it really impressed me. I went in going into it being like, okay, I'm used to these games feeling interesting and feeling fun and being cool in those ways. But getting a chance to go check it out and get my hands on with it, it's really fun. Like, I want to find people to play this with and figure out good ways to find some fun matches on this thing because it's hectic. It's not twitchy in the ways that you think most games are when it comes to those ideas. It's more about strategy and tactics in the ways that you are combining forces with your co-op teammates, thinking about these much, much larger maps that you're kind of traversing and playing on. And it really was a thing where you're like, oh, if I can get a fun team together, because it's basically 2v2v2v2, I think it's like maybe 3 sets or 4 sets of teams. You're having this initial kind of gain resources, get resources for your character, for your mech, and there's a bunch of different classes for these. It's like a sniper class, these kind of quadruped mechs. It felt like the dopest version of Transformers I've played in a long time because you're playing in these much bigger spaces and you're like fighting the world. You're fighting mechs, you're fighting enemies, and you're going through all of these matches trying to get to the end part where you're trying to kind of leave the match and extract. But you're doing all these really fun things in between. So you're like, all right, I got to fight these drones to get resources so I can go and boost up my character. But you're also like, oh man, if I get run up on by some other teams, do I have enough resources to kind of get out and battle my way through those matches? It winds up being really, really smart because you get a chance to check out so many different versions of gameplay during a match, and it all feels really, really seamless and smart. Like, I think one of the things that came away from me playing it was feeling like, okay, I have a good understanding of what I'm trying to do here, but also I have a really fun amount of space to be able to work my way through in some of these battles. And it's really, really, really smart to be able to figure like, okay, you know, in a game like this, I'm used to trying to play run and gun, but I don't have to. I can wait. I can play strategically. I can kind of move towards the back line, flank other teams, take their stuff, blow up their characters, and do that stuff. It's a free-to-play mech shooter. A lot of the stuff that's going to be in this game is going to be mostly cosmetic initially when those things are kind of coming online. And I like the fact that they are coming into this with a ton of different mechs, a ton of different kinds of modes and all those kinds of things. So you have 12 players on a map initially when you go into some of these matches, and it's really just fun and immersive stuff. Like, the customization is going to be cool. I'm excited to just kind of differentiate my mechs from others when you wind up getting some of those into the play space. And they all just play so different. So, like, you can really be like, I'm going to stay back here and work the edges, or I'm going to be a full frontal assault kind of fighter in some of these matches. It was a lot of fun. Again, I was hoping that we were going to be able to play with multiple people. I got a chance to kind of play versus bots. And that stuff just felt really fun and super smart. Getting a chance to kind of, have this very grounded gameplay. This was a fun blast to kind of go through. Let me see. There's another video as well that had some more footage. And this mech was a little bit different. So this mech was kind of more of your soldier mech class, which, again, the designs on these were really smart. They really felt fun. They looked really good. Got me excited to be like, oh, okay. Your skill tree is one that you're kind of building out and working through and adding more mods to your guns. It doesn't feel like one of those things where you're like tacking on things specifically in terms of weapons, unless that's a part of the gameplay that you wind up seeing a little bit later. But, like, it was just a fun time for a very early version of what the game is going to wind up being. I think for this alpha, they're definitely going to have a pretty good player base already ready to go, which is so I'm not worried about that, because the folks who are in that wargaming space definitely know what they're doing when it comes to building worlds and games like this. But I'm hyped for this. Like, this thing looks pretty dope. And it was super fun to kind of work through some of the battles and work through trying to figure like, oh, if I hit these pressure points or I hit these kind of glowy bits on there, I can knock off some of their armor and do more damage. There isn't like, body specific damage that you do in that way. It's not like a thing where you're like shooting at a leg and crippling their armor or crippling their legs to kind of do something there. It's not that. It's kind of taking damage and shields off their entire body. But the tactical stuff is just really smart. Like, you can do a lot of different things. So one of the things I was talking to them about and I was worried about was, towards the end of a match, you'll start to see everyone moving towards the extraction point. And I was like, oh, well, do you have a way so that you don't have it where a sniper class will just camp it and work those edges and do that kind of stuff and just literally camp those spaces, blow your team up and kill you? Because you can either work by extracting or you can work by killing the entire team. And the devs were like, oh, there are some balances to that stuff. There are classes where your whole job is to flank. Your whole job is to figure out like where those characters are going to wind up being. So it winds up having like inside your periphery of what you can see, it'll show on the minimap where enemies are, especially if they start shooting at you. And if you have a class that can go invisible, which they have, kind of more of a like sneak around class, you can have that character go after those snipers, take them out, get them off there because they're pretty squishy, get them off the map so that you can then extract with your team and continue on for a victory and for a win. I like what this game is trying to do so far. It does feel a lot like a much bigger world Titanfall. I think the scale of the characters is really, really well done. I think the variety of characters is really well done, and I love what they're doing with the way the guns feel and those things. I'm bad at, they're still working into getting controller support into the game. They had a really kind of rudimentary version of it when I played, so it's a little bit jerky on the gameplay stuff that I got a chance to check out. But folks who are already on mouse and keys, like, that's going to be really easy for you to control. I am excited about controller support because that's what I need. I'm really bad with mouse and keys, but knowing that that's going to be in the mix for them is going to be a lot of fun to be able to see how that all kind of gets implemented and how these games are going to play. It just felt really fun. Like I love games like this. I love mech shooters. Being able to, broaden out that genre is something that I think a lot of people want because there aren't a lot of great mech games out there. There are a couple. And I think Wargaming as a team really understands exactly how to make a game really smart like that. Yeah, and Time to Kill looked really reasonable too. I think that's at a really good spot as well. Like there's a lot of really smart ideas of what they're trying to do here. Here's a little bit of gameplay from the sniper class, which I loved. And you can get in, like you see, like that snipe is like deep. You're getting in there from way far out and getting a really good shot on some of that stuff. And it gives you, like sway is always a part of those conversations of like, well, how much is your gun sway and that stuff. You have to be locked on really. Like you have to be kind of straight on and still, to get a good snipe off with some of those things. It doesn't feel like Call of Duty where you're just like, I can use a sniper rifle the same way I use it as an assault rifle. You have to really be locked in and be kind of focused on your character to shoot those things, shoot other enemies and things like that. And it just felt really, really fun. Like traversal and the map size felt very good. So I'm very excited about Steel Hunters. Steel Hunters is going to be a game that I am definitely checking out. I'm hyped for what this game is going to wind up being. I think we're going to see more information, especially in next week, because the alpha will be going up live. And I'm excited for people to check it out and play some more of it. It looks really fun. And, when you have a melee class, you can just roll up on people and beat their ass. That stuff is cool. Like, it's going to be fun to be able to play stuff like that in those ways. So, shout out to everybody who rolled through and was amazingly kind and awesome and hanging out with us here on Twitch and on TikTok and on YouTube and on X at Khalif Adams. I finally got my account back, so shout out to support on that side, helping those things work themselves out. It's hype for that. Good stuff is coming out. By the way, if you are looking for dope content and thinking about South of Midnight, our review goes up on the 3rd. Go make sure you're checking that stuff out on Spotify and YouTube. We're going to put those things up on our Spotify channels first, and then we're going to release them on YouTube later. We want the podcast to kind of get some love. So please make sure you're checking it out on the podcast first, because we're going to be starting to put up videos and audio versions of the reviews over there first. Also, we're recording this on Sunday, but tomorrow is the 31st. If you're watching this on the 31st, we will have coverage and preview stuff for Doom the Dark Ages on our channel, which I got a chance to check out. You are not going to want to miss that content. That'll also be up on our podcasting feeds first. Go check out that stuff. And if you don't want to go on Spotify, you'll get the YouTube version of it the day afterwards. All those things are ready to go. It's been a very busy month for me. Everyone who knows that I do this work knows I do this work solo. I literally just finished playing Assassin's Creed Shadows to fruition. Just finished up South of Midnight for review. I'm tired, but it's fun. Like, again, I'm one of the luckiest cats on the planet to be able to do this stuff. There are very few people who get a chance to have access to all these kinds of things. And I hope that you're all enjoying the content. And please, please, please leave comments on stuff on YouTube. That only helps that channel grow. We're almost at 6,100 subscribers there. Trying to, again, boost up our visibility on the podcasting side. And in the next couple of weeks, hopefully you'll hear more about some other projects that are in the mix for all that. And then we have a couple months from now, Summer Game Fest as well. So a lot of good stuff there as well. So I got to go edit this bad boy and get this ready to drop in the morning. Spawn Me episodes drop at 6 a.m. PST, 9 a.m. EST on the East Coast. Again, thank you everybody tonight for coming through. It makes me so happy to see you all here when we go live. I know I don't schedule these things out properly and kind of do these ad hoc for streams, but the fact that you all show up, and now even seeing dope folks on TikTok that we're trying to build that up as well. Thank you again. It really does mean something to me as a person who's been doing this now for 11 years. It has been a long time doing this show, and I enjoy every day that I get a chance to do it for all of you, knowing that all of you are amazingly dope human beings out in the world who are still trying to find ways to enjoy this thing that we really care about in video games, and not being out there talking shit and being mean to other human beings for no reason, when you could really just be out here just enjoying the beautiful things that we have in the video game space. So I just want to say I appreciate y'all. Want to send you all a bunch of love. I hope that you all are doing well. Please put 2FA on all of your accounts so you don't get hacked. Please change your passwords in a fairly change your stuff often. I'm trying to still get bigger in this space. I'm not dead yet. There's a lot of good stuff out here, and we have a lot of fun things to share with all of you at home. So again, massive love to you all. Day Dublin asked, are you going to live stream the Switch 2 stuff? I sadly don't have any. I don't have a Switch 2. I'll probably recap some of that stuff on this week's show. Probably we'll do it on Thursday. But I won't be there to kind of see the stuff live. I'll be watching the announcements along with everybody else on the internet, and having some thoughts about what that stuff is going to wind up being. So make sure you're, again, checking out the podcast and subscribing and all that stuff in all of those wonderful, dope ways. So we are going to get up out of here and jump out of here so I can go get at the show and all those wonderful things. Not the stream that they're doing. You're going to let people live react with you. Maybe. I don't know. It depends on when they're going to show it. Possibly. Depends. I might be at work during the time that stuff is happening. So if I'm not in a work meeting, I'll potentially jump on a stream and do it there and live react with it. But if not, I'll have some thoughts that we'll be able to jump in and talk about during that. But thank you for asking that question. Thank you everybody in the chat for being so vocal today. It always is really, really great to have so many people watching and listening and sharing. We had, a bunch of folks on Twitter today. We had a bunch of folks in various spaces today. So, almost 200 people on X, another almost 20 people across Twitch and YouTube, and definitely another like 10, 15 folks over on TikTok. I'm hoping that maybe when we do more stuff on TikTok, it'll boost that a little bit and people will be able to see more of it, and hopefully find us as well. Dope. Love you all. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend. Treat each other well. Wash your hands, wash your butt. And until next week, we got dope stuff coming tomorrow. Got dope stuff coming on the 3rd. Dope stuff dropping all of those times. If it's mad early in the morning, I ain't getting up that early. Hell no. I love you all. Have a wonderful time. Go Knicks. Go Mets. And we'll see you all very, very soon. Much love and peace. Thanks again, everybody, for coming and hanging out tonight. Everybody who's on TikTok, appreciate y'all as well a bunch. We've been trying to get TikTok up and rolling and getting those things together. South of Midnight coming soon. Get ready for our review. I have to record it tomorrow, but I have all my thoughts together for it. So we're going to get that rolling very, very soon. Again, have a wonderful weekend. Have a wonderful rest of your day. And make sure you check out all that dope content in the morning because it's going to be dropping pretty early in terms of embargo. All right, y'all.